Hi guys and gals, Shane Stevenson here again for 29 and 29. And for today's video we are going to try to make sense of the Sea Plane Hangar on board the USS Little Rock. Okay, as you can see, I've got my reading glasses on, I've got my notes, I've got a couple of blueprints, one that I think supersedes another. So let's just dive right in. So it seems as though that there was a lot of talk with the Bureau of Aeronautics, the General Board, and the Bureau of Ships as to where on cruisers, even pre-war, where to place an aviation space. The Bureau of Ships wanted aviation spaces in between the stacks at midships. Bureau of Aeronautics wanted them on the aft, on the stern of the ship. And even as far back as 1932, they were discussing this and developing plans and ships testing these out. So there were three designs that they did, one in the aft, one in the midship, and then one with none at all. And Bureau of Aeronautics kept pushing for the back of this ship itself. And this again would not only for the heavy cruisers, but then this would be for the soon-to-be developed Cleveland class. So there were some benefits to having the aviation spaces in the aft of the ship, such as there would be a dedicated hangar. Certainly if you're midships and you got hit, all the gasoline that would be there could cause catastrophic fires, less congested, easier to bring the aircraft aboard. There's a lower platform, and I don't mean like the main deck of the ship, but if you're going into the superstructure, you're lifting it above the main deck to the O1 or O2 level. Here, you're just bringing them onto the main deck. And easier for cross-deck launchings. All right, that makes sense. If you're in the middle of the superstructure, all you can do is port and starboard. Very little. The catapult could move extremely little, so that arc is not very wide. Where on the back of the ship, you really just had to focus on not hitting turret 64. And so you had much wider arc to fire. Original plans for the Clevelands, and this is where it gets a little murky. Original plans for the Cleveland class would have, my assumption would have two sitting on the catapults ready to go, and stowage for 6 other seaplanes, whether they're Kingfishers or Seahawks. Right, and one of the blueprints that I'll show you has that design. Another conundrum is, like the Croker, the USS Little Rock was not the last commissioned, like Croker was, of the Gato class. She was the second last commissioned Cleveland. And that was only by 8 days. The USS Portsmouth was the last commissioned Cleveland, and that was only 8 days later, from June 17th, 1945 for the Little Rock to June 25th for the Portsmouth. So there was a lot of time to potentially make wartime modifications for the Clevelands that had already been in service for multiple years and months. So that's kind of where I get this video turns into a little more conjecture, because they just don't know how many they actually stored when the ship was in service, 1945 to 1949. So in our collections, we have a digital copy, which I printed out, of a very early blueprints of the Cleveland class as a whole. right? If you've watched that video from over the summertime, kind of the flow, general board, if it does it go to a private shipyard, does it go to a Navy shipyard, and then that process of laying out the plans, who designs, who draws, you know, New York Ship or Gibbs and Cox were the ones that I showed in that video. So there's a lot of discussion like that. And so the digital plans, so this is the third deck on the general CL55 class. So what we are looking at is the Sea Plane Hangar on the third deck. And let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as the research shows, and confirmed in the Norman Friedman book on cruisers, that there would have been 6 stowed in addition to the 2 on the catapults already. And then actually one was actually just stored on the elevator. So this blueprint is superseded the general one that we were just looking at. And this is I don't have the date, but it is specific to the Little Rock. So if I was to go to the third deck, forgive me, here's the third deck of the Little Rock. Yep. Now that is quite different. So what we see is they've added all this berthing. Here's the elevator shaft. What am I seeing? I'm only seeing 2 planes. So they're going, so if we're looking at the berthing here, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a walk down there too, and I'm going to use these hatches as a reference. All right, right around frame 125, this hatch going down on the third deck. So we'll see those mimicked on the second deck. So I'll use these as the reference points here, unless I find the frame numbers, which I may do. So all this berthing is added. You can see here in the original plans, this would be right around the space right here. There's no berthing. Now you have the planes, the potentially 2 planes stowed with the overhead rails, right, leading to the elevator pit. And here you have all 6. 1, 2, 3, at least on port. So again, yeah, this plan is for CL92 Little Rock specifically, created after this plan here. So my theory is, with her being the second last commissioned Cleveland class cruiser, they had a lot of time to make wartime adjustments. And I'm thinking that this is one of them. When I talk to, I've only met one sailor from this time period, 1945 to 1949, and he was a signalman. So I'm sure he did not spend any time or very little time in the Sea Plane Hangar, you know, the hangar deck. Other than that, I've not met a guy who served aboard 45 to 49. We do have a lot of CLG-4 crew, but of course, this is all adjusted prior to that time, so they would have no recollection either. And that's why I'm saying there's a little gap here in our knowledge. And we can't visit another Cleveland class. So there might be a second video as we go through, as I do a little more research. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take a walk down there And it's, again, going to look totally different than what you've seen in each of the plans. But, see you in a minute. Now we're going to focus on the literal blueprints that we have, unfortunately undated, but the ones specifically for CL92. Alright, sorry I had to makeshift this a little bit here. Alright, and as I mentioned in the Admiral's quarters, as a good point of reference, we have this hatch here and this hatch here. Alright, thankfully those were not changed in the conversion. We're looking at frame 125, so this transverse bulkhead here is frame 126. And if we take a look, $126 right here, and there's the hatch. You walk around the corner, right aft of 126, here's the other hatch here. So that gives us a good measure of where we are at. So I am standing roughly right about here. It's right around the corner there. So I am roughly here, and what we see is plenty of berthing. It says cruise berthing. And here is the elevator and the overhead door. Oh, I need my glasses. Got to get those frame numbers. So we're looking at about 135. There's the, aha, yep, there's the trunk, which we will show. And we'll walk into our on a second deck here, which is where we're at, into the Sea Plane Hangar itself. Alright, so again, we'll be going from here, roughly, just right to here. There's the trunk. And now into a bulkhead that's been built, all right about here, and go from there. I wish I brought a piece of tape. Ugh. Watertight trunk. Aft steering on USS Little Rock. Down there, and then down again. So, this is our, what we call today, our seaplane hangar. Makes sense? So, if that blueprint is correct, right from this bulkhead here, maybe 137, this was, the whole overhead would have been the door, the hatch to lead out to the main deck, and the elevator coming up through the deck here. Hello, frame numbers. 147. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. 147. We'll look at that. Oh, thanks for coming along with me here today, folks. Glass duty, glasses duty. 146, 147. So that's where I just was. And now it was the cruise heads. .40 millimeter stowage. Oh yeah, because we did have the 40 millimeters there on the stern of the ship. There's the platform and a platform, and so these were the stowage areas for 40 millimeter projectiles. Now it's now our head. So really, where I mentioned in the second platform, or the second deck, this is the whole space where the elevator was. Right, again, here's frame 136. There's the watertight trunk that I just showed you. Now, we don't have, on these plans here, again, all berthing, which would have been around here, but that hatch, right there on the deck, is not listed. It would have been, there is this, leading down to radar control. So that may be it. It just looks a little different. Now going down to the third deck. So again, this is where we started. That's actually right there. So if we go down, again we see more berthing, where before this would have had all 6 planes stowed. So we're going to head down here, berthing all over the place on starboard, hangar space here on port. So we're looking right at about 25, right, starting right about 130, 135, 140, and then to the elevator pit at about 140. So just immediately you would have had berthing all along starboard here. This is where the planes would have been stowed. What looks like 2 planes, right? And this is a display that's coming down that from a local reenactor group. So they are taking apart their space here. Now we've been down here before. Through this passageway is the laundry. So you've seen that being filmed, hopefully. Now this has really been reconverted. So we're looking at 136. All right, so the planes would have been here. Geez, my memory is so bad already. The planes would have been here, the berthing would have been there. Yep, we're still at about 136, 147, so about 140. Again, this is our laundry space. So maybe frame 140 would be about here. All right, again, this would have all been opened, and the planes would have come from where we were roughly to about here. The elevator shaft would have started around here. And then again, right now we're in the transom in the back of the ship. That's it right there. So I don't really want to belabor the point. Thanks for watching. I will continue to do some research on this because I would love to really map out exactly where everything was. Right now you're just getting an overview of it, and I'm getting an overview of it as well. So did they store 4 on board? 2 on the catapults, 2 down here. That's what the blueprint looks like, the superseded blueprint. The original, just CL55 class in general, had 6 stowed. That's what Norman Friedman was saying. And So a little more research, and again, this has really been converted during her 1957 to 1960 configuration. Or her conversion. So there might not be as much evidence, and again, we don't have a Cleveland class to actually look at. So I'd like to do a little more digging around, but for now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave comments, all that stuff, subscribe, ring the bell, and I hope you're enjoying 29 and 29, and we will see you again soon.